What's going on, guys? Alec here from Oz Fury Gaming. Going to be talking about all the information we've got this week, so let's get stuck into it, shall we? First off the list, we have 17 must fixes until 3.0 actually comes into the hands of the PTU testers. Now, this will be the concierge guys, so those who spent over $1,000 USD in game. So it's going to be exciting to see. As we can see from the chart, is nicely going down. After there too, we got the Pioneer for sale. Now, for some reason, the pictures didn't want to load for me at the time, but basically, the Pioneer is a large capital ship, 200 meters long, able to build bases of various types. We're going to get a Q&A soon about it, but it's quite interesting, and it does look quite pretty. In my opinion, I think it has some great aesthetics about it, even though it does look a bit like a chopping board. Now, the Pioneer at the moment comes with a UEE claim form, basically, so you can go there and you can actually claim a certain piece of land for you or your org. Now, how this will work, well, that'll probably come in the Q&A, but as we can see in space, we've got a lot of different places to go explore, and it's going to be interesting how they work on each planet. For example, gas giants and things like that. So CitizenCon had a lot of information for us, guys. We got to see the Sabre Raven. Now, that's coming out on the new Intel Optane SSD, which is a PCI Express slot fit, and that's coming quite expensive. We'll talk about that a bit later. And then also too, this SMG is going to be coming in for 3.0, and they gave away some skins and stuff for those who came, and you can also buy that blue skin for $5.50 USD. That's including the Australian 10% GST. And then also there's the CitizenCon 2947 trophy, same price. Now, if you buy it with store credit, like any other tax, it doesn't get applied. So after looking at these quick things, we had the keynotes, and the keynotes showcase quite a lot, in my opinion, of what to expect in the future, as well as how close they are to actually getting more content out. One big thing that Star Citizen's always been criticised about is that the devs are taking too long, and I always love with CitizenCon when they come out and they just blow, haters, I suppose you could say, out the water with what they're trying to do. Now, I'm not going to get into what they actually are doing, if it's true or false image and stuff like that. We're going to look past that. But I want to talk about the Sabre Raven for the moment as we move through ArcCorp Area 18. The Sabre Raven is only coming with two size 3 guns, guys, and one single engine instead of the Sabre's twin engine setup. So it's definitely going for a more stealth look. Also, too, having a smaller cross-sectional area means that when it comes to scanning, that for example, there's cross-sectional lock-on missiles, it'll probably take longer or be harder to pick up on scanners. Now, this is all theory crafting. Until we get a true Q&A, we're not going to really know what's going on. Now, what I've done here is I've sped up the ArcCorp, the whole footage from the keynotes, because it goes for freaking ages and I don't have all day to be talking. So let's get stuck into what we see here. First of all, everything's just been high def and looking nice and crisp. Here, by the way, too, we have guns in the window, extra guns that if you want to go back and pause and have a quick look, but there's different types from what we have seen before. Here we're going through customs, which will be easily going out, and as we can see here, the line to go in will be a pain. Now, I'm not sure if we will be having to do that. Like, for example, if you've got to bring a heap of cargo in, if they'll let you come in and out really quickly, or if you'll get a pass or something like that. Because if you're unaware, even though you can put cargo onto your cargo pads in, say, for example, the Starfarer, if you don't have it on that pad, you can't actually access it with your Mobi-Glass or transfer it electronically. You must actually physically pick it up and take it to a stall. Now, we see the Terrapin there looking nice and pretty. Obviously, they've finished the high-res UV mapping and all that sort of jazz, but not ready for flight. So we jump in this Humble Aurora, which I think was a really nice ship to fly around in. We got to see its high-def rework as well, especially there with the Item 2.0 working. And I do like the new setup and how everything looks nice and crisp. The other reason too, probably for using such a small ship, less chance of the game crashing, being the fact that this is probably a very high prototype of 3.1 or whatever this build they want it to be. I'd imagine that there'd be a lot of bugs they haven't quite sorted, and that this is quite a condensed and confined build. Now, speaking about builds, it's going to be quite possible that we'll be getting quarterly updates instead of content updates. And what this means is, previously, like when 2.5 was ready, 2.6 they released it, and shebang, it was done. Now, what they're going is with the Delta Patcher that has come out with 3.0, they're looking at giving every 3 months more updates, whether it be little things, big things, whatever, and if it doesn't make it to that quarterly update, it gets pushed to the next. And I like this idea because, first of all, the devs are under less stress on certain components, which means that when it gets given to us, it will be a much smoother experience, just to hop in and play. I'd expect to be less crashes and things like that. Now, being an alpha, you can't expect it to be perfect, guys. So I'm not saying that. But what I mean is, I expect, when they add a new ship, for example, the Merchantman, the Carrack, all those sort of ships, the 890 jump are starting to be worked on. And I'd imagine now, as soon as they're ready to come into game, they'll come in with the next quarterly update. So instead of having to wait for 3.1 or 3.2 to come out, and that's why I think they decided to get rid of that big update schedule they had, which showcased a whole lot of different things coming in for 3.1, 3.2. Because, for example, in 3.0, we're meant to be getting mining. Well, originally we weren't, then we were, and now we aren't. 3.1 will be mining. But then again, with these quarterly updates, I might go, well, actually mining will be in for the 3.0 patch, but it'll be like 3.0.6 or something, something to that extent. So don't write them off entirely, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go. Game development is like any other development, whether it be a building construction or anything like that. There are hiccups, there are turns, and especially in something that is extraordinarily such as Star Citizen, which has never been done before on this scale, it's always a head turner, and it's always something that's going to bring across unusual and unforeseen circumstances. Now, one thing that I'll notice here too, by the way, is the SCM speed and afterburner speed. The SCM speed was the same, but look at this, they're getting up to 700, 800, then they'll go to 900 meters per second, which is quite fast for a little Aurora. And obviously that's probably getting the second stage afterburner or whatever, but it makes going that 25 kilometer journey quite nice. Now I've cut through here and I'm speeding this thing up, trying to get through it. Talk about this truck stop quickly. So as we can see to the right, there's a Gemini. So the biggest ship you can really expect to land would be a Gemini or a Caterpillar on these landing pads. They did discuss too about how the Hull series would come up here and land, and then they get their cargo on and off, so they'd probably have a special docking point. And they talked about how jobs in regards to transport would be that, you can come across and dock your Hull E or whatever big ship you want. But they also discussed how there would be jobs in taking cargo from truck stops down to the planet. For those who want to stick to a certain planet or whatever, or don't want to be going to the far reaches of space, or have a bit more safety, just something to do casual for half an hour or whatever, bit of mission fun. I think this is going to be a really great way for people to engage and do that. Especially too with what we'll see later, short quantum jumps instead of these big, huge, having long times either flying that we have at the moment, or having to jump away to a different place and then come back on a different side of the planet, or for example like Grim Hex or anywhere like that. You got to come in the right spot. Now they don't go inside the truck stop all the way, but we will see the innards of space stations and things like that a little bit later. I just want to talk about too, just the planet here, how they have scaled it correctly. In an ATV about a couple of months ago, they discussed about how they wanted the planet to be to scale as best as possible. And by that, I thought they meant, mountain ranges and shit like that. Little did I expect them to have the lighting effects and all that sort of business coming into play too. That actually blew my mind. So guys, what we have here now is the city builder, right? Basically what it allows them to do is put in these tiles, click on whatever they want, and they can procedurally build a city or whatever they choose. Now this is really important because it'll allow them to build the game faster. Now procedural generation has a bad name because it's quite shallow in its building. They try and keep it fairly resource light. And I think that Star Citizen will initially have this issue through alpha as they build it up, but I think as we start to see full game start, the beta and the full game release, a lot of this quarrel will start to go away. The next thing on the list here is the level editor. So as you saw from the flowchart, guys, what they can do is they get different buildings and they attach them with the arrows or the lines, and that allows them to procedurally build these innards of a space station or whatever they choose easily and efficiently. Now there are multiple systems inside the building such as this, light, power, air, gravity, and that sort of jazz. So what happens is if someone was to build it by hand, there could be mistakes and things can easily fall apart. So after looking at all this beautiful gear, they actually end up running to the Hurston. So as we come up to Hurston here, guys, you'll notice that first of all, it's a completely different looking planet. ArcCorp's all about that cityscape and real, I suppose you could say corporate or business side. Hurston is too, but they're more about mining and industrial stuff. Now, as we can see, they're going through the Maybe Glass here, selecting the planets and having a look at the star map, picking up where the different jump points are, and allowing the pilot to really go, okay, I'm going to jump over here instead of using that second stage after. This is important for multiple reasons. First of all, it's really quick to get there. Note too, we're going through this jump gate. Now, they said that it's meant to be an important part of landing and leaving the planets. Be curious to see what that's all about and how that really plays out in the game as it goes on. Note the landscape's really nice, guys. We can see the multiple sets of equipment, gathering resources out in the lake. Now, if you were to go across that lake at a later build, they're hoping to actually get proper wave formations as the ship goes over it. And there's other things like. Now, as we go over the crest of this hill, we'll note that, it's still a nice barren landscape. We can see the shrubbery below just slowly forming, as well as these big rock landscapes and the other sets of machinery here as well. Curious to know what these different types do, but we'll wait and see, won't we? Now we come up to the actual main area, of Hurston, Lorville, and as we can see, it looks kind of small, but as we get up to it, it's quite large. There's a MISC sign there, and same thing again. There's still advertisement, but note there's not as much advertisement here as there was on ArcCorp. But like ArcCorp, we can see too there are different areas, but it's still mainly heavily industrial. So we fly to the back here, thanks to some nice piloting, and we land down and we do all that jazz. And I'm really looking forward to this, guys. I played Freelancer and a lot of other games, and one thing that always bugged me was that you had to go to spaceports and things like that. But having a proper landing zone is nice, and you can stay the ship and all that, but sometimes it's nice to just land wherever you are and do whatever you feel like doing. As for example, running around looking at shrubbery and looking a little bit crazy. But you get an idea too when you're on the ground how large these buildings are, as well as the flora too. Those little trees and stuff we saw before, they actually are quite large. So as he wanders up to the shack here, guys, he finds himself a Nox, and I love the Nox. I think it's a beautiful looking thing, but even in this build, it's still not without its flaws. Going nice and quick here, as we can see, doing what the Nox does. What he ends up aiming for is actually the edge of the spaceport, or the main part of the city, and it has a bit of fun. So if you're not aware too, the Nox has some physics bugs in 3.0, and it's still carried across to here, as we can see. So he goes for a wander, and we can see a really busy spaceport, all different things going on. So this is what we expect to see, as well as not just the people on the ground, but the ships in the sky. Now it finishes off with a nice cutscene here, where we get to see a different type of bugs. They were made in one of the live streams. It was interesting to see, so that was handy and dandy. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll bring out some more information as we go along, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Toodaloo.